Voters Candidates Evening. My name is Bonnie Wren Burgess, and I will be moderating this evening. I would like to welcome our candidates who are here this evening. We have Tim Hughes, who's running for Trustees of Public Library, Mark Fisher, who is running for Selectman, Scott McDermott, running for Moderator, and Mae O'Shea Brooke, who is running for School Committee. I'd also like to welcome our in-studio Chenery meeting room audience, as well as our audience at home. What we're going to do tonight is each candidate will have an opportunity to talk about their responsibilities, areas that they hope to focus on going forward into their next term, and how they see important aspects facing the town and their responsibilities towards that. I also want to remind everybody that voting takes place at the center at Medfield on Monday, March 31st from, I believe, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. We encourage everybody to go out and vote, and not only for the candidates, but also will be the ballot question on the state hospital land purchase. So for this first round, each candidate will have 3 minutes to describe his or her responsibilities, what the committee or board or position entails, his or her qualifications, and perhaps to let us know what he or she hopes to focus on going forward. After that, we have each candidate will have some further time to talk about major projects happening in their area, and then we have a variety of questions from the audience that we will be directed to either all of the candidates or specific candidates. So without further ado, I think we'll get started, and we'll start with Mr. Hughes, and you'll have 3 minutes to talk about
candidate for library trustee, and this will actually be my hopefully my second term. There are 6 library trustees altogether. We meet on average 10 months out of the year, once a month, Tuesday nights. They're open meetings, so anyone is welcome to come. And each year, actually in April, we kind of trade positions on the committee. This past year, I was just finishing up my term as library chair. And if there's a lot of library business, it's not unusual to actually have to meet more than once a month. And sometimes, even though we're supposed to have the summer off, we don't always. Anyway, in terms of my qualifications, really, the library's been a big part of my life since moving to Medfield with my wife in 1985. I received a master's degree of library science from Simmons College in the late 80s, and it was actually while I was getting that degree that I began working at the library. I was a staff member there for well over 20 years, primarily reference librarian. As the years went by, I sort of fell into having to do computer maintenance because everybody else was kind of too scared to touch them, I think. But anyway, that's pretty much it. And I'll save for the next round what our focus is going to be coming forward, but I will say that long-range planning is definitely one of the primary focuses for the coming year.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. Next, we have Mark Fisher, who is a candidate for Selectman.
Thanks, Bonnie. It's nice to be here. Thank you. You folks might not, some people may not know me as much. I'm kind of the quiet one as far as the 3 of us that are on the Board of Selectmen right now. I'm the one that I don't blog, and I don't put articles in the newspaper. But I grew up in Medfield, for people that don't know, and I graduated from high school in '74 here from town, and I've lived in town all my life. And my mother's family goes back to the beginning of Medfield, the Clarks, and I'm the 11th generation that's grown up in Medfield. So deep roots here. Certainly feel very committed to the town, and always kind of thinking about where we want to be for long range health of the town, and kind of how we want to see the town, stay as a very nice small community and provide excellent education for our kids. I'm running for my third term as selectman. Selectmen in the town are run for 3-year terms. There are 3 selectmen, and each year one of us is running. And generally the way it works is that the selectman whose term is coming up for run for re-election is the chairman for that year. So we rotate the chairmanship through every year for the Board of Selectmen, so we all take turns as far as our running the board. So like I said, I've been a chairman for selectman for 6 years, getting ready to run for my my third term here, and kind of give you a little idea too as far as what I kind of envision the role that selectmen are in the town. I equate it to really kind of like the board of directors for a company. We're kind of responsible, I think, for overall direction, policy for the town. The management of the town reports to us, and they kind of take their kind of marching orders from us to make sure that they're kind of following the wishes of the town, and we're all kind of heading in the right direction and kind of taking care of the taxpayers as a whole. We try not to get involved too much, I think, in operational details, but really let it to the people that are the professionals here in town that are quite well equipped to take care of that. I came to the selectmen 6 years ago. I had been on the warrant committee for 5 years, and I found that was invaluable experience before becoming selectman. When you're on the the warrant committee, you get a chance to really kind of get to interact a lot with a lot of the town boards and committees, and really kind of understand the finances and how the town works and who does what. And it really helps a lot when you transition up to the selectmen. You've already got a good feel for who's who. So I would recommend anyone that is considering at some point to kind of move into public office is to definitely look at, perhaps as a starting point, maybe the warrant committee. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Scott McDermott, who is running for town moderator.
Right. Well, thank you for hosting us and for producing the program. So this is my 12th election. The town moderator needs to stand for election every year, once a year. That's the check and balance on the process, and also provides, I think, the town moderator the right level of opportunity to be able to use his or her independent judgment and discretion to orchestrate the town meeting, because you are subject to election every year. We do our town elections just before the town meetings, and hopefully if things go well, I'll be elected to a 12th term. And, last Monday night was my 15th town meeting. I've done 3 special town meetings in the 11 years that I've been the moderator as well. So the principal responsibility of the town moderator is in the conducting of the town meeting. Mm-hmm. And one important part of that goes on before all of our friends and neighbors. The other night before over 800 friends and neighbors. And that is the orchestration of the town meeting, the annual town meeting on the last Monday of April each year. The behind the scenes, we spend quite a good deal of time reviewing the warrant, talking about the articles. I meet pretty regularly with Mike Sullivan and Christine and Mark Sorrell during the period leading up to the annual town meeting, to make sure that we have reviewed the articles and that we're all in agreement as to the treatment of those articles, the kind of majority that is required to pass the articles, how they will be. Sometimes we pair articles with other articles as a matter of either procedural expediency or just because naturally they should be considered together. And so there's the kind of the pre-work for the town meeting. There's the actual orchestration of the town meeting, and the third part of it that I take a lot of pride in is that we spend time with all of the players, which is the town clerk, the chief of police in terms of public safety, and the other night we spent time with the building inspector to make sure that we weren't going to exceed occupancy. We had overflow rooms. I spent a lot of time with Medfield TV. Monday night was televised live, but whether it's live or on tape, we talk about that. talk to Doug Olson. We have the jazz band on a regular basis, or some other part of our Medfield High School performing arts. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is that I appoint the members of the warrant committee. And I've been doing this long enough now that I've appointed all 9 of our members of our warrant committee. They serve on 3-year terms. In fact, I've appointed 27 people to the warrant committee. And so that is also an opportunity for me to be able to meet and spend a lot of time with people in town, and we interview and really try to find the right people with kind of a balanced approach, no particular core issue that they are, completely feel that that's why the only reason they're on the committee. We try to find people who are fiscally responsible and care about the broad spectrum of articles that we might see in a year.
Great. Thank you very much. And last, we have Mae O'Shea Brooke, who is running for school committee.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much for having me this evening. The last time I ran for something was 7th grade. This is a little jarring. Anyways, I am running for school committee, and the school committee post is a 3-year term. This would be my first time, and I think that this is an uncontested seat. However, I feel strongly that I should at least voice why I want to run for school committee. I have 4 children in the school system. I have a kindergartner, a 4th grader, a 6th grader, and a 7th grader. And I feel like I'm in those schools with them, or try to be, and I feel I'm in touch with the needs. And what's great about our schools as well. Also, I'm the co-president of the Medfield Coalition for Public Education. We're an organization that raise money to enhance the educational curriculum of the schools. And so I feel that I've got a professional relationship built in within the schools, working closely with the superintendent, with the administrators, the staff, and also working together with the community, raising funds for our schools, and also working with other parents and volunteers on the coalition. So the school committee, as many of you know, review and set the policies for our schools, and I feel passionate that we have great schools, but that they could forever be better. Everything can improve. So last year I served on the superintendent search committee, and I really enjoyed that. I thought that, it was great to be engaged and informed, and you realize that it's not the superintendent just doesn't deal with the schools, it deals with the town, and it's everybody's connected. And I feel strongly that the schools and the parents and the town, there's a partnership there, and we can all work together to forever improve our schools.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Next, what we'd like to do is give each candidate the opportunity to talk about some major projects happening in your area of responsibility, or goals, particular goals that you would like to fulfill in this next term. And I think if we, just to mix things up, we'll start at the other end and go down, if that's all right.
Okay, well, when I first moved to town 11 years ago, my oldest was 2, and the school committee had these parent forums, which I think, so they grouped these forums, preschool age, elementary age, etc. And I was just, when I first moved here, I just was so excited that they even wanted to bother engaging the community to hear our voice. So I went to a meeting. Susan Cotter, who was one of the school committee, was so smart. She just ran a great meeting, and she really made the families out there feel that they were part of the process, part of voicing what our education should be like for our children. So I would love to ideally bring that back, if that is possible, a forum to really engage the community, because I think families have a lot of input, and just a forum to have a conversation, to start a conversation, to where do they see the school system going in the future.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next, Scott, what about as moderator?
Well, thank you. Of course, the first project is approaching in April, which is the annual town meeting. So on April 28th, we will have it's going to be a very robust meeting this year. We have about 43 articles that are presently framed on the warrant. So the challenge of that night will be to make a determination about whether we can get it completed in one night. We have a charter requirement to actually have it completed by 11:15 at night, starting at 7:30. So that's a lot of activity in an evening, including the town budget and the capital budget as well. So that's something that we're thinking a lot about, how we would structure that. It's hard to get our legislature back, a couple nights in a row without having a hot button issue. So we have only twice since I've been moderator had town meetings that have run into a second evening. And we have a fairly high quorum requirement in Medfield. It requires 250 registered voters, and there's a whole philosophy about high quorums versus low quorums. But we have always had a higher quorum, so that's always a consideration. But that goes to another part of the job that I didn't mention in my opening remarks, which is that I see myself as trying to advocate as much as possible for the value of town meetings and the fact of in Medfield, not only is it participatory democracy at work, and I think it really works very effectively, and when it works well. But also we have a long historical heritage to maintain. It goes all the way back to 11 generations to when the Clarks were here, but it literally does, from 1651. And I've read a lot of Medfield history, and when you put together what we did on Monday night around determinations for the state hospital, but you go back to various times, conscription of soldiers in the Civil War and the Revolutionary War, and other major decisions to build schools and to do things in this town, it's really gratifying to be part of a long tradition of the community and the neighbors gathering to make determinations and decisions about local interests in the form of everyone who is a registered voter being invited to participate and having the opportunity to be able to speak and to be part of the process that helps to determine kind of the course of the strategy for the town as we go forward.
Great, thank you. Mr. Fisher.
Well, we're actually in a pretty busy time right now, and that was one of the considerations too. When I was thinking about was I going to run again or not? Because it's a 3-year commitment, and as is with most committees in town, it's a significant time commitment. So you have to kind of weigh that versus your personal life. Can you fit it in? Does it work for you or not? And one of the big things that really came in favor of going for another 3 years was, we're right in the middle of a lot of big projects, obviously the state hospital. And I can't tell you, how pleased we were, how well it went on, Monday night for the special town meeting. It was just very, very gratifying to feel everyone kind of coming together and thinking in the same direction. So that obviously is a big project for us that we're kind of right in the middle of doing. And I definitely want to see that through the next 3 years. We got to keep pushing and keep the momentum going on that and getting the property redeveloped to the way the town wants it. In a couple of other projects too that I feel very strongly about too. We're kind of in the midst of designing the new police and fire station, and I want to see that through. I'd like to see them to get a nice new home, a safe home, and something that the town can be proud of and can really kind of look nice in that spot in town. So a couple of big projects there. And of course downtown, we're right in the middle of a kind of like a rejuvenation of the downtown here. It's kind of blossoming, with Starbucks coming in soon. Road Brothers is going to be across the street. We're very excited about that. So it's an exciting time, and I didn't want to miss out on that. I wanted to make sure I stayed involved with that and see those things through to fruition. And I think besides those kind of concrete goals, one of the things that I always try to focus on as much as I can as a selectman is that is always kind of fostering, I think, cooperation and a sense of camaraderie between all the different committees and stuff. And a lot of towns, it's not like that. A lot of towns, I don't work in Medfield. I work in another town, and I've always worked outside of town my whole professional life. And you can see in other towns, sometimes you can get into a lot of wars between the school committee might not be talking to the selectman or whatever, and they get fighting over budgets. We're very lucky in town here that by and large, almost all the time, everyone sets aside their differences, and they're always kind of thinking about the greater good of the town. I mean, they really do. And that's another thing that makes you feel good about volunteering and helping out, because it's rewarded. Everyone pretty much kind of always is thinking about the right thing to do for everyone, as opposed to like a special interest group. So it's an exciting time, so I'd like to go another 3 years and see where we go.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Hughes?
Okay, I think I may have neglected to mention that my term also is for 3 years. So, and as I talked about before, one of the kind of ongoing projects for trustees and the library as a whole right now is long-range planning. Every 5 years, the library is required to come up with a long-range plan, and I really see it as an opportunity for the library to go out into the community and kind of get a reading from people as to what it is they want from their library.
Yeah.
I feel that the public library, although times are changing, it's still a very important institution to the town of Medfield. And this, as I said, gives us an opportunity to make sure that we're giving people what they want. And the way it works is there are staff, trustees, and community members are involved in the planning process. Already, groups have met, and this is actually a new process to me. I will be part of a group that will be meeting in May, and there's also survey that's now available online to give feedback to the library. If you don't want to go online, there's should be a paper copy available at the front desk. And it's actually, I'd like to put a pitch out there for people to take the time to fill out the survey, because the more responses that we get, I think the more accurate we can be in terms of our planning. And, we really want to do what's best for Medfield. Other things that are going on with respect to the trustees, since I've been associated with the library, I'm not aware that the trustees have ever kind of undertaken fundraising, but that's something that we are in the planning stages of. I should say that the town has been incredibly supportive over the years to the library, and that's something that I would never take for granted, that support, but it's very appreciated. At the same time, the library, with technology the way it is today being very expensive, also we're approaching, the Daily Building's approaching its centennial. It was built in 1918. So we're always looking to kind of maintain the building, make it comfortable, welcoming for the people that come in there. And so all of that costs money. And I think that even with the support that we get from the town, we're looking to do some specific fundraising so that we can address specific projects. So those are just a couple of the things. But
Great. Thank you all very much. Next, we have some questions that have been collected. The first one, as several of you have mentioned, is that these are uncontested races this year. And I was wondering if, for all of you, if there's any way you can think of to encourage more residents to run for public office, or is there a way for those leaving office to seek out and mentor people who wish to run? the League of Women Voters runs forums and, how to run for office. We run candidates evenings. And do you have suggestions for the League as well? Why don't we start with Mr. Fisher?
Sure. I think in the town meeting handbook, I think in the back of it, I think there's like a little volunteer request form. So that's
The
how I
talent
got
bank.
started.
Yeah.
I got started. I filled out my name and
Same
I checked out this. I was interested in the warrant committee because I'd gone to town meeting and I was watching them. I say, I think I could do that. I'm in the banking business. I'm comfortable with numbers, budgets and stuff like that. I think that's something I'd like to try. If an opening comes up. And, it was nice enough to interview with Scott, and he said yes, so kind of got going that way. So I would really encourage anyone out there, if they're looking around, to look at any type of committee that might interest them a little bit and really try to ask to, see if they can get involved with that and try it. I think they'll like it. I really do. I think they'll like it. And I know everyone's very busy, and you've got, everyone's working very hard, and they've got kids and everything else to take care of. But if you can try to squeeze out a little bit of time for the town, you'll feel really good about it. You really will. Yeah.
Great. Mr. McDermott?
Just one quick anecdote. Every year, I do turn in my nomination papers as we're required to do to collect signatures. And a year ago, when my friend Carol Mayer, who we turned him into our town clerk, I kind of went in and I said, Carol, did anybody take out nomination papers against me, thinking that I was going to get her to say, well, who would run against you? You do such a great job. And she looked at me and she said, who would want it? So I don't know how that bears on this, but I mean, Mark had one of the things. And, there's actually a pretty effective feeder system in town, and a very good example from the coalition and from the folks who are involved and from the Warrant Committee, people who have moved up to be on the Board of Selectmen. So I do think we get, good candidates, and I'm not sure about solving the challenge of having contested races, and whether that, would provide a material advantage to the town. I think the most important component is that people who are interested and they see these opportunities, that we have people who have prepared themselves to be able to do this in one way or another, and that these people, come forward for the positions.
Great. Mr. Hughes?
Okay, well, actually, the first time I ran, actually, it was pretty natural for me to think about the library, but I had to admit part of my motivation at the time that I decided to run, it looked like the race would be uncontested. Then it turned out not to be the case. But so here I am again for a second time. This time it's not contested. But I think, as both Mark and Scott said, it is rewarding to be a volunteer, I think. And for that reason alone, I think it's worth looking at the various committees in town and seeing if there's something that appeals to you. It's really appreciated, I think, by the people in town that you're willing to give some of yourself. So I don't know that I can add much to that. But actually, there is one thing. In terms of the library, if you're interested in the library, you don't have to have a library background. It's actually very helpful to have a variety of backgrounds on the library board, which we do. So I just happen to have that background, but I'm in the minority, so.
Great. Ms. O'Shea Brooke?
Yes. Interesting, because I didn't think when someone mentioned that I should consider running for a seat that was going to be vacant, I thought, no, thank you. I can't do this. I don't think I'm qualified. I didn't go to school to be a school committee. And he said to me, you're engaged. You're involved. You hosted, it's the Chinese teachers that came to town. You love the schools. You're qualified. And I thought, okay, then I can do this. All right. But there's so many people who are engaged in the community. I think this is such a Medfield, we're so lucky, to have so many willing volunteers, but how to transfer that into getting people to run for office, I'm not sure. I was just turned, so I need to figure that out, because I think that's the challenge. There's a great pool of people.
Yes.
So I think that would be a great conversation to continue, is how do you transfer that energy into running for election?
That's right. Putting your name out there, absolutely. We have another question for everybody, and it's about the state hospital land purchase. And that's, if the purchase of the hospital land goes through, what do you see as the biggest problem in owning the acreage? And how do you see it impacting your area of government and responsibilities? And I think we'll start with Mr. McDermott.
Well, the way that it will impact my responsibilities will be that there's likely to be a number of articles in the future
Sure.
that would go to things like zoning changes and so forth. So I would expect that, depending on how the development of the property were to roll out, that there would be a number of articles related to the property that would come before the town meeting. Could even require special town meetings in the future. So that's the most immediate part of how it would affect what I do.
Sure. Ms.
Anna
O'Shea
Mae.
Brooke. I always want to say Brooke O'Shea. Ms. O'Shea Brooke.
That's all right. So I think with any new development, the question is how many school children
Kids, yeah.
are going to start entering our schools. It's the unknown. However, from what I understand, our numbers are going down in the schools. So could we easily acquire an influx? I'm not completely sure. However, but that would be a concern for the school committee, is new development, new children into our schools. So that would take a lot of consideration. Yeah.
Great. Mr. Hughes.
Well, if assuming, and it sounds like housing is definitely something that is a keen interest of many people. So naturally, if there are more houses, then there's potentially more people to come to the library, which is, I see it as a good thing. But it's certainly depending on the demographics of the people. It may affect the type of programming that we'd want to do. Things like that. Make sure that, it may mean that we'd have to increase materials just so that we can make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community. And who knows, maybe, more people living in Medfield parking potentially could be an issue at the library. So you never know. But I definitely see the purchase of the land as a very positive development. So I'm all for it.
Thank you. And Mr. Fisher.
Well, I think the biggest challenge we have with the state hospital is to keep moving with it. We've got great momentum from Monday night, so it's important to stay focused and to kind of keep moving forward and keep pushing ourselves with the planning process and not to let it stall. And so I think that'll be our biggest challenge, is to, providing it goes through the legislature, is to get the right committees in place to kind of keep moving forward with a master plan and onto zoning, and really come up with a terrific plan that the town is comfortable with, that really fits everyone's needs. So I think the biggest thing is just to keep going in the planning process, and not to sit back, but to kind of just keep shoving it along.
Okay.
I think it's the biggest thing.
All right. And further, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add one component. Every year in November, the warrant committee convenes for the first time as it begins the process of thinking about that particular fiscal year or the next fiscal year's budget. And Mike Sullivan runs a tremendous meeting in which everybody, particularly when we have multiple new members, are introduced to the complexity of municipal finance. And it's very complex. It's actually multiple times more complex in many ways than corporate finance is. And by voting to take the property, we've extended ourselves. I mean, there's a lot of financial consequences to how this is all going to work out, the purchase, the maintenance, the insurance, all of those components. So I think that for impact for all of us, because we consider the operating budget and the capital budget, would be just to confirm what Mark was saying. We need to move quickly on to make sure that we have a good planning process and that we're executing against the various opportunities and risks that property provides to us.
Absolutely. All right. Further to that idea, while we're talking about master plan and things like that, we know that we are in the process of thinking about, new fire and police buildings. And I'm wondering if there are other buildings that you think need updating or replacement. What areas of need do you see as far as building goes, not only at the state hospital, but in the rest of town? And perhaps, Mr. Fisher, we could start with you.
Sure. Well, the town's got we're very lucky again. We've got a terrific committee called the Permanent Building Committee that helped us get going with the town garage and is now working on the preliminary plans for the public safety building. And they're a standing committee. So from what I see, I think, next up that we're going to have to be taking a look at is at some point, do we have a new park and rec building at some point? They're in the FAF Center right now. Certainly isn't an ideal location for them to meet their needs, so that'll be something that we'll have to consider down the road. And of course, the Dale Street School, which everyone knows that's has not been attended to for quite a while, and will need to be addressed. So those are two big things, particularly the school. Like anything else, any school is an expensive endeavor, so I can see those things coming up in the future.
Right. Mr. McDermott?
I tend not to really comment on projects,
Sure.
particularly projects in this particular cycle where we have the public safety building is on the agenda and substantively, I think a big part of my responsibility is to project, being a process person and running a kind of a very fair and
Sure.
objective meeting. So in terms of particular projects, but I do think that a master planning process and the integration of that with looking at what kind of debt we can take on and assimilate and look at the all of the other questions having to do with the demographics of the town, both when it comes to school-age children, but also there are larger macro demographic phenomenons happening. Recently, there was an article in the Globe where they actually projected a loss in population in Medfield. It was one of the, I don't know if you folks saw that, but it was a 5% diminishment in population just based on some projections of the number of kids in our homes and how long that's likely to play out. It's obviously just a projection, but
Sure.
it's a kind of a factor that goes to the planning process.
Right. Ms. O'Shea?
Yes, so
Brooke?
So yes, I understand that Dale Street is probably not a number one priority for the town just yet, but I believe within the schools, the 5 schools, that would be the priority. But what I'm so impressed by is, we're implementing a lot of, I would say the coalition has helped a lot, and the CSAs have helped a lot with the technology, the iPad initiatives, etc. And even though Dale has its challenges, I'm so impressed with how well they can work within the challenges. So, for example, Owen O'Corcoran, he's fantastic, the town web guru or the technology guru, in terms of, all right, this school may be torn down or refurbished or what have you. So they're implementing, or I think they already have, I don't know the technical terms, but Wi-Fi in each section, so when they tear the school down, they can take those implements with them and use them again. So they're being very smart with what they have. Yeah. So, and I appreciate that. And when we're investing in technology, it's thoughtful consideration of what's going to come down the road, not just today.
Yeah.
Mr. Hughes?
Well, I have to admit, I haven't focused too much on other town buildings, other than to be aware that there is a lot on the town's plate right now coming down the road in terms of new buildings or modernization. So I feel like, as a trustee of the we need to be aware of what's happening in the town. So we won't be asking for a new building. but no, we have actually applied for a state grant so that we can ideally work within our building to modernize it some, especially with respect, I think, to technology. Nothing at this point. First, we'd have to get the grant, but nothing's written in stone as to what we would do. But I know technology is one of the priorities because we feel like we need to be able to be much more flexible than we are right now in order to, technology, as we all know, is just rapid growth, constantly changing, and we need to be in a better position to meet some of those needs, because the reality is at the library, a lot of people bring in all types of different devices that they want to be able to use in that setting, and we have to be able to meet those needs.
Great. All right. Terrific. Thank you. Now I have some specific questions for specific members. And so we'll start first with Ms. O'Shea Brooke, if we could. And I was wondering if you could comment about the one-to-one device initiative and the financial ramifications on families.
Sure.
For instance, if you had 4 children.
Yes. Exactly. So the one-to-one initiative, they've piloted that at Blake. And first of all, I need to commend Nat Vaughn, who is really one of the most thoughtful and conscientious principals that I've just ever come. Everything is methodical, and not just for the students, for the families, for the teachers, because it's not just bringing in the iPad and all of a sudden using it. Well, the teachers have to be trained on how to use it in the classroom. The students need to know the limitations for it. And the families, because the schools aren't providing these machines or these tablets, the families have to purchase them. And although the schools are being very thoughtful, and there's buffers, the coalition, the CSA, they've helped purchase sets for the schools, so they're being very mindful to the limits of what families can do. But I think in Medfield we're very fortunate that, one, a lot of families already have them, or two, because of the information that is being put out there by the administration at Blake, for example, that the families are really embracing what's going on or what they're doing in the schools. So I think the one-to-one is great. If you haven't gone to one of the iPad integration meetings over there, they're phenomenal. Really fantastic. So not only for the kid who really can take on, who's gifted, who's, they can really take it to the next level with that. But then on the other side, for students who maybe struggle a bit or have gone out for services, they've come into a class, all of a sudden they're sitting in class, they don't have time to write down the assignment. Click with it's really, I'm so excited. But what Mr. Vaughn always says, the iPad does not replace the teacher, the teaching. So I think they're very conscientious about it, and I'm very excited that the community as a whole has embraced it, and I'm excited for our students for the opportunities that it's opening up a different world for them and a new way to learn, which is great.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Next, we have a 2-part question for Mr. Hughes, and
2 parts.
It is.
Parts.
The first part is that it says the fines have changed at the library. Could you kind of outline what they are now?
Sorry, could you just repeat?
Certainly.
I was thrown by the 2-part.
Yeah. The first part is the fines may have changed at the library recently, and wondering what they are now.
I'm in bad shape because I have to admit I don't know what the fines are.
All right. No, that's fine. And then the next part of that is, are there any, the library has done such a phenomenal job at reaching out to young people and teens, really welcoming them back to the library. And this question is, they were wondering if there are any programs being developed for seniors, and also are there any special privileges or maybe fine rates for seniors as well?
Programming pretty much is handled by the staff, not by the trustees, so that's not an area of expertise. The person, actually, they just hired a new staff member, Alex, who I assume is the person who will be in charge of the seniors. Obviously, just hearing the question, I will be bringing this back to the trustees to make sure that this is something that will be addressed, because ideally our goal is to provide programming for all ages. I know that in terms of the kind of young adult age, that was a particular focus, but I will, as I said, I'll make sure that we look towards seniors, because the reality is it's a growing population, and it's, to me, many people in that age group have been loyal users of the library for many years, and I think it's an important group to reach out to.
Great. All right. This question is for Mr. McDermott. And do you feel there are any publications such as the town meeting guide or something else that would be helpful for attendance at town meeting to familiarize themselves with how town meeting works, or the organization of the town? Or are there other publications you think would be helpful for people to have?
I think it would be great to refresh the town meeting guide that talks about quite a bit about how the procedures work and what are some of there's local bylaws and charters that have implications for the town meeting, but there's also a number of state statutes that could be contained in that. I know that Christine Triaweiler and we've talked about refreshing the website in town around issues associated with the warrant committee and the town meeting. So I think that'll happen in the months ahead. We have a major significant codification effort going on, so we're going to get all of our statutes and our regulations and the various laws online, and that will be significant. So people who have an interest in town government, but also in issues of being able to research to get them online. That's a big initiative, and the committee has been working very hard on that project over the past 24 months. Yep. So those are the kinds of things I think that I think of it as maybe a publication. Maybe something that could be. We've tried to streamline town meeting a little bit by including the guidelines, which I used to read at the beginning of the meeting, into the warrant report,
which is fantastic.
It saves time for sure, and so those kinds of things. But interested in hearing as well. One other thing that we've tested is electronic voting. We haven't tested it, but I go to the Mass Moderators Association meeting. We've looked at some towns are starting to move towards electronic voting initiatives. They're very expensive now, and they're not. There's still technology defects that make them a little bit tricky. So, but that could be something that down the road would be kind of interesting, and could help to speed up a meeting, and we wouldn't have to do standing counts.
But the counter's out of business, unfortunately.
There you go. Well, I'm sure there'll be a whole range of technology support that'll be necessary by another group of people in order to do it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this last question is for Mr. Fisher. And I'm wondering if you could talk to kind of the amount of affordable housing units we have in Medfield versus what we need, and as it pertains to, as there is an uptick in the economy and building and things, and how you see that affecting the town.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of conversations about that the last few years, particularly the West Street development stuff. So in Massachusetts, if the town doesn't have 10% of their housing stock as affordable housing, what's classified as affordable housing by the state, then developers can come in and obviously override the local zoning regulations and kind of build what they want. We're at around, I think the numbers are hard because it changes all the time, but we're at right around 5% or so. We're about halfway there. And I think what we need is probably another 170 to 200 units of what the state will consider to be affordable housing in order to get to that 10% threshold. And then that eliminates the 40B and the developer override the local regulations. So one of the potential benefits or uses for the state hospital property, if the town so agrees, is that whether we can fit affordable housing and the town agrees into that mix there, then it could be a terrific way to get to our 10% goal, and therefore allow the town once again to take back over control of its zoning regulations for housing. So that's one potential solution of that. That we'll see what the town wants to do with the property, but that certainly is one way to get there.
Okay. Terrific, thank you. And then I think we'll just kind of finish with a little bit of a lightning round here. So, because, it always happens that, there's been a town meeting or there's an election or something, and even though there's outreach like this, there's articles in the paper, people are blogging about it, there are signs up and everything like that, you still run into citizens that remark they didn't know.
Yep.
So, if you've got a suggestion, well, I think we'll just go right down the line. What else can be done to help people get the word out there? We'll just start with Mr. Hughes and go right down the line, if that's okay.
Actually, do you mind going?
Okay.
Sure. We'll come back to you at the end.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we're doing much better. I think over the last few years and stuff like that, we're certainly the town website's getting better and better. We've got the patch as well as the printed newspapers. People are getting out. With Richard writing articles and Pete blogging a lot, that certainly helps a lot to get the word out. And I think the big thing is that people do need to take a little bit of time and read what's there. I think, and maybe sometimes it's just information overload. Right
Sure.
Between people getting emails all day long and everything else, they can only handle so much or read so much or have so much time for it. So if people just need to, I think, be able to read. I think a lot of it is out there if they can just spend a little more time looking at some of the stuff.
Okay, great. Mr. McDermott?
Well, I think if Richard continues, he'll have everybody in town on, connected to his blog, and that's it's a great source.
Yes.
And I think there are with the patch and Wicked Local. There's a variety of and still the newspapers people go to first, I think, and so it's when they arrive on Thursday and Friday. So those are all good sources. As it relates to the town meeting, it's obviously great to have more people there than not. But one of the things that I take, a lot of appreciation is the people who do come, because it tends to be those are the people who kind of self-select themselves to be our legislature and
Yep.
to have stayed informed on the issues, and I think it really leads to a well-educated group of people who attend the annual town meeting, and I talk all the time to people who have never been and
Yeah.
that have been in town as long as many of us, and they just kind of cede that responsibility to the people who either care or stay informed, and I actually don't think that's all bad in some ways.
Okay, good. Ms. O'Shea Brooke?
Yes, well, I think that information is out there. It's our responsibility as citizens to read it or seek it. But I think of the Medfield Coalition for Public Education in terms of this past year. Our PR person has done such a great job in getting our word out in terms of, the Facebook pages, getting people to like that. Twitter. The Thursday packet is actually a great way to engage school-aged families, and the school sending out emails. They'll send newsletters or updates on the coalition's behalf, and our PR person Susan Maritan is just so conscientious. And weekly we send things out to the papers, to the patch, and it's just so it's out there. And I think if we continue that message, people will hopefully tune in to where they can get information. But Richard DeSorger's thing is brilliant.
Yeah.
I love it.
Great. Mr. Hughes, anything to add?
See, the reason why I wanted to go last so I could say, no, I don't really have much to add. But
Smart.
seriously, with social media, I mean, that's really how I get a lot of my information. And there's so many different forms, whether it be through Facebook, through Twitter, because, something like Twitter will link you to then website or a blog or newspaper article, what have you. So there's lots of ways to get the information. And I know just even like with respect to the library, over the last few years, really through Deborah Kelsey, the director, and she's working with the cultural partners, hoping to form a cultural district, and working with them, holding a gala on an annual event just to make people that, hey, we're out there, and it's just another way to get information out there. And we work with Zulo Gallery and the Historical Society. Every first Thursday, they usually have some type of event going on. So there's lots of ways to find the information if you're interested.
Okay.
I got one
Mr.
more
Fisher,
thing.
sure.
Sorry. Yeah, just to follow up too, as I forgot to mention, obviously Medfield TV. I mean, you do the
Yeah, there you
right?
go.
Can watch Medfield TV. Obviously, the Selectmen's meetings are all taped. They're out there to watch, and everything comes by us, with the exception of the school committee. But your meetings, I'm sure, are taped and stuff like that.
Yes,
and,
they are, I
So
believe.
between the two, if you watch that, you'll know everything that's going on because it all comes by us.
Excellent.
At one point or the other. So
Right.
So that would be a great way to do that too.
An appropriate way to end our time here today. I would like to remind everybody that you can vote for these candidates as well as on the State Hospital purchase at the center on Ice House Road on Monday, March 31st from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. And furthermore, town meeting is held the last Monday in April. This year it is Monday, April 28th. And I would like to commend our candidates for coming out. Democracy is not a spectator sport, and I want to thank you all for playing tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
This program was made possible through the generous support of your Medfield friends and neighbors, folks just like you. And thanks for watching.